So today I would like to start talking on this very short text on the vow of bodhicitta, composed by Acharya Chandragumi. Khaje Sergio Ranger Rablan Mandara Dalajune Jinda, the Ginderbu, Jimabas, on the Belunum Kayanda, Kanjir Nepal, Roger of the Gaver, Batzimba Kayamba. Tedadam Jetarba, Dambegur to Bezuni, Jinedrishi, Kanda Suju don't get it, Dejula Jurba, so they think the Timbichi Chabi. Number the Batam Jedrishi, Namo, like a Nujin gate to Bumdada meet, and I'm down to a good Jitanam Chesamba. Tamjiki do Dagi Chuden do Paldenza Marmbuche, Dagi Chur Pemede June, Kadinja Begunjunde, Kuzundu Jungo Drop Saldo, so Tapke Tuji, Shachi Risutung, Shinjimi Tubduji Punchamba, Serjulumbo Tabrujibu, Shaji Jabe Shabla Chatsalo Chakon Kulu Jibe Jaboton, Jendon Kavasambo Sangeton, Kanla Kandu Tela Terdemba, Zumba Cherizilla Chatsalo. Siji Jawa Tamjiji, Shipumbo Chikduba, Sishi Kunji Paljurbe Jambe, and La Chatsalo. Kanshi Tony Shinji, Ponyala so down. Tagni Chosir Jerjeba, Dojich La Chatsalo, Corvaledo Tarema, Totare Jigedu, Turena Namlu Drumayum La Chatsalo. Drumayum La Chatsalo. Shejatam Jizibe Jayamba, Dogunjele Dube Tujen, Sametile Zebe Domawa, Jamgalame Shavla Gujans, Shejatam Jizibe Jayamba, Dogunjele Dube Tujen, Sametile Zebe Domawa, Jamgalame Shavla Gujans, Shejatam Jizibe Jayamba, Dogunjele Dube Tujen, Sametile Zebe Domawa, Jamgalame Shavla Gujans. Tengmin Kaula Kinsewa Childrizidan Lama Kinsewa Tuji Lama Kinsewa Cheno Lama Chinsita Cheno Chilapters Lama Chukutala Ningi Kola Namsam Kangi Chatan so Nisim Taji Tambe Meba Tegungumbu Suzuji Jasitu Namtar Sabjin Jachi Tala Nirsu Yabjin Lashental Rawamachi Kangenda Ninsen Kundu Jamen Kube Samjan Cheji Tukje Shu Chungse Menyan Sungaranganya Bilibise Tadong Chunya Majurba do Japshin Solwar Majuroji Hong Ji Jin Jansam Pema Gazar Dombal Yanzen Jogem Odromne Pema June Jezotan Kurdo Kandro Mambo Goro Chiji Jezo Taduk Shinji Lobjir Shek Soso Guru Pema Sidi Hong Kusum Lama Soje Doji Tala Chokmo Jungo Drup Saldo, so Jerbo Jelazo, them Golden Virgin Major Jindun Samba Druba, Chokman Tomo Drup Saldo, so. So this teaching is offered mainly to those who have been studying ways of Bodhisattva with me. Whether you are in the Bodhisattva project, whether you are in other sort of programs where we teach the same text, the text of Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, the ways of Bodhisattva. And then, of course, by and large, anyone who is interested in learning about the vow of bodhicitta can also listen to this study this text. Because we have all taken bodhicitta vow many times, actually, many of us, and it is almost safe to say that most of you haven't received the bodhicitta vow from the Chittamatra tradition. Most of you have received it from the Madhyamika tradition, the tradition of Nagarjuna, Shantideva, and these masters. And in those traditions, the vow of the bodhicitta, the practice of the bodhicitta actually is not so much presented as a vow, but more as a path. Actually, they're same, but just different aspects. When you read through Ways of Bodhisattva, when Shantideva talks about, for example, the downfall of anger, he says when a bodhisattva gets angry, to a higher bodhisattva, then 1,000 aeon, 1,000 kalpa worth of merit is destroyed, like that, right? But they don't. He doesn't necessarily call it a downfall. Only sometimes he calls. He talks about downfall, tungwa. He take it by its name, but most of the time it's presented not as a vow, although it is a vow, and obviously all the practices themselves are vow, but not from that aspect, And it may give us this notion that these practices, it's good that if we do it, and if we don't do it, that's also fine. And to some extent, it kind of is, because even when we take the vow of bodhicitta from Manjushri tradition, this tradition, Madhyamika tradition, then in the verses itself, it is said, I will practice, as step by step. I will practice step by step, just as the Buddhas of the past have practiced bodhicitta. I will also, for the benefit of others, practice bodhicitta step by step. So then, sometimes masters, they introduce only sort of one downfall to us. They say, as long as you do not let go of your aspiration to liberate all sentient beings, you are fine, in a way that you still have the bodhicitta. And which means as long as you do not let go of sentient beings, even if it's just one person. When you look at even one person and think, I just don't care about this person anymore from now on, I just don't care, then you have lost, you have, been defeated by downfall. Or else, we are given to understand it's kind of okay, you may not be the best bodhisattva, you may not be even a good bodhisattva, but you're still a bodhisattva, you know what I mean? So like that. In the Madhyamika tradition, emphasis is not made so much from this aspect that it is a transgression if you don't do this, like that. It is more like you must do it, you should do it, you should practice like this. It's the more emphasis is laid on transformation of our mind. Now this text although it talks about bodhicitta, it is, I believe it comes from the Chittamatra tradition, the tradition that is from Arya Maitreya and from Asanga and Vasubandhu, like that. And the author himself is Chandragomi. In this tradition, the vow is taken one after another. They're not taken together, meaning you take the aspiration bodhicitta first and then application bodhicitta after that. The Sakyapas still, obviously all the Tibetan Buddhist tradition follow the Madhyamika tradition, but I think the Sakyapas, maybe the Kadampas also, they also keep the sort of lineage of giving the vow like this in the Chittamatra way too, So, for example, during Lamde teaching, then the masters, they give both vows, from the tradition of Manjushri and also from the tradition of Maitreya, like this, which will be then one after another, not together. Because of the difference of view between these two schools, because of the difference between the way how Nagarjuna and Manjushri and Shantideva teach, and Maitreya and Asanga and Chandragomi, they teach, the way or maybe I should say the advices of how to keep the vow, what will what to do after taking the vow, it differs quite a lot. So this text will be mainly according to the Chittamatra tradition, but that being said, it doesn't mean that it is something that is not applicable to us. Obviously not. Bodhicitta is one. Our aim is one. So now just the sort of way of introducing this bodhicitta, practice of bodhicitta to us is different, and that's all. Meaning all of the teachings, all of the sort of vows, what one should do, what one shouldn't do, that is mentioned in this text is very relevant to us too. I wanted to say that because I myself am guilty of saying things like, "Oh yeah, just keep the aspiration vow, and that's enough. And I think for general population listener, it's important to say like this, or else people get really disheartened, But it becomes a habit, and even to bodhisattvas, even to those who study Bodhisattva Charyavatara, many times we sometimes do not really talk so much about the transgressions and the defeats. Defeat means root downfall, so meaning now you're defeated by the downfall, meaning you're no longer a bodhisattva, so it's in Tibetan it is translated pamba. Pamba is basically you're defeated, or it is a defeat. And then near defeat, like it is a transgression. There are transgressions. They are quite big transgressions, but they're not root transgressions. They're sort of near to the root transgressions, and then smaller transgressions, downfalls. Like this. We don't talk about this, and at times I felt need for that, and people actually complained, a couple of times. How come Tibetan teachers don't talk about this? And it's not because we don't have it. It's just the way the Madhyamika sort of tradition teaches. It's more encouragement on the transformation aspect rather than the you cannot do this. You must do this like that. Just little bit different, but basically we're talking about the same thing though. So now the author is Chandra Gommi. Without further ado, let's get to the text, and first to introduce the author. Chandra Gommi is really a celebrated Indian teacher, Indian scholar. I believe many of his writings we still read, we still use. For example, Sisya Lekha, this obviously is commentary on different Tantra texts and sutras. He's considered a very unique master. I mean, just his birth, for example, it is said that I have it somewhere. In India, there was once there was a big debate between a Buddhist master, Buddhist Pandita. Pandita is more like actually like these days PhD, doctor, like that, like very learned person, and it's actually like it's a designation, it's actual name that you get after you become quite learned, and then an institution or an authorized individual will say, you are Pandita now, like that. So anyway, there was a big debate between a Buddhist Pandita named Chanti and a Charvaka Pandita. So now Charvaka is an Indian school, ancient Indian school that doesn't believe in life after death, that believes that whatever that you see and smell and taste, whatever it is here now, this is it, this is all existence, and you die, you basically you become worm food, so to speak. There's no more of you. So that's how they debated. That's how he debated. He gave many reasonings why there cannot be life after death, And the Buddhist master, who was equally learned, argued why there can be a life after death, and why not having life after death, is a mistake. Sort of, this type of philosophy is a mistaken philosophy. So at the end, nobody won. Neither the Buddhist master nor the Charvaka master. And now the Buddhist teacher saw only one way of sort of defeating his opponent, was to actually show a proof of life after death. So he said, he tells his opponent that next month, on sort of next month I will die, and I will be born as a son of a Buddhist scholar, Buddhist Pandita, again another scholar. And when I am 7 years old, I will debate with you and I will defeat you. And as a sign that is my next life, you will find a white dot, on his forehead. And because he has a white dot here, his name will be, the parents will name him Chandra, which is moon, name of the moon, Sanskrit for that, Chandra. So he dies the next month, and true enough, he is born to this Buddhist, this another Buddhist Pandita. And as soon as he comes out of his mother's womb, he makes 3 prostrations to his mother, and he says, I hope, majallam, meaning, I hope it wasn't so difficult for you, he tells to the woman, to his mother. And as soon as she hears that, for whatever reason, whether she was afraid that people will think that this is a very sort of strange kid, or whether she was afraid that since her son seems to be very special, he will get harmed. For whatever reason, the mother tells him, from now on, do not utter one word, be quiet. So for 7 years, the boy doesn't utter one word, and everybody believes he's mute. He's he cannot speak. Now, the Charvaka Pandita waits, so the boy is born, and then after 7 years of the birth of the boy, he sends a text, a grammatical text, Sanskrit grammar text, I believe, to the father of the boy, and he says, read this, learn this. Next month I am coming and we're going to debate on this. And if you do not know this, you are defeated. So father is confused. He reads it and he doesn't understand anything. And he shows it to other Buddhist scholars. Nobody really understands it completely. And he shows it to other non-Buddhist scholars. Like, please, can you help me? I have a big debate coming. Please help me. This I understand, because Charvakas were against not only Buddhist but Jains and all the sort of rest of the Indian tradition, because all the Indian traditions believe in the next life except them, right? So I can believe that they would be willing to help this Buddhist master, but nobody knew anything. They couldn't help him. So he was really sort of very sad and worried. Now what will happen, because this type of debates, it entails something, when you lose, then you lose everything. You lose your, not just your name, or it's not about your money or wealth. You have to leave your belief, you have to leave everything behind and follow this person, whatever this person says, and follow the school and philosophy of this person. So he was worried what to do now. And he still went on asking to other people, and he left the text on his table. And as the son was playing around, he sees the text and he understands the text, and he makes many notes on the text. Wherever his father had problem understanding, wherever other people had problem understanding, he writes sort of notes on the text, and it goes back to his playing. The father comes back and he reads the note, and he understands the entire text, and he's extremely he's overjoyed, and he asks his wife, who came here? Someone really learned must have been here. And the wife says, nobody. Our Pullempa, meaning our idiot son, was playing there, and I didn't bother him. I let him play, and that was it. And then he calls the son and he asks the son, did you do it? And the son points to his mother, and because he's not speaking, right? And the mother says, speak, Mushi. No, the mother says, speak. If you can speak, why don't you speak? And then the son says, well, when the day of my birth, you told me to shut up and don't speak. So I listened to you, mother. I didn't speak for 7 years. So like that. Then now they find out that their son is exceptionally sort of, learned, very wise. The time comes of the debate, and the great Charvaka master comes to debate with the father, with the king of the land, and many other scholars as a witness to the debate. During that debate, the boy stands up and he says, let me debate with him, father. and you just tell him that first defeat my son, then I will debate with you. Say it like that. And he says it like that, and he defeats the Charvaka masters, and obviously I think by that time it's also very apparent to these Charvaka masters that this is the next life of his previous opponent. So anyway, so it gets defeated, and he becomes very learned. Very exceptional master. I do not remember so much details about his lives, but I think he also spent many years meditating, on islands in South India, something like that. So learned, kind, great master that the monks of Nalanda decided to invite him. Actually, Chandrakirti decides to invite him, sort of invite him properly. But since he is not a monk, Chandragomi is not a monk. Our author is not a monk. Is a lay practitioner. I don't think he was a householder though, but he was a lay practitioner. He was not a monk. Since he is not a monk, he thinks that it's not proper for thousands of monks to stand in line and sort of invite. Sort of when I'm coming, this is not proper that they should stand in line and invite me. So now the only proper thing to do is that first put a statue of Manjushri on one chariot, and this chariot go first, and then I will be on another chariot, and then I will follow. As there being sort of the procession is going on, he makes praise to the Manjushri. And it is said that the statue, sort of looks back like this, and this statue is said to have been kept in Nalanda actually for many years. Anyway, so a master who would receive teachings from Chandrazik directly, who would receive prophecy and advices and inspiration from Tara directly, as a person would speak with one another. This is so important, but not because of magical aspect. Like, it's not like a miracle. Not important because it's some sort of a miracle, like somebody seeing like a fairy or an angel or something like that. Not at all. But important because these are the source of Mahayana. These are the source of teaching of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and then to be able to receive teachings directly from Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, that is really unparalleled, isn't it? So that's why these accounts are mentioned in their biographies. I think not to sort of show off or try to impress the listeners or readers. I don't think so, but more to as a proof that these teachings are really authentic. Anyway, so this is very, very sort of rough, short account of our author Chandragomi. The text is called 20 Verses of Bodhicitta, of course, because it is 20 stanzas and it's about Bodhicitta vow. So it's called 20 Verses on the Vows of Bodhicitta. Mm. I tried to look for a translation of this text online, and I found one that was available to be used like this, and it is from bodhicitta.net. Now I don't know the source of this. I think it's a website, right? Website. And who translated it? They don't write any names, nothing. Where was it published? Nothing. But anyway, 20 verses on the Bodhisattva vow, Chandra Gomin. Sangye sedan jebala kube chaksal chini choktu kunna shukbai changjup semban namji tim sonam kunji terjur kang dene samba tambai lama domla neshin ke Nutang den la lamar chas. Make prostration with reverence and offer what you can to the Buddhas and their disciples. Then the moral code of bodhisattvas who abide in all time and space, that treasury of all merit, should be taken with lofty intention. Lofty intention. From a lama maintaining and learned in the vow, who is capable of bestowing it. So, the beginning part of this text is dedicated to taking the bodhicitta. He says, so the first is the preparation, and the preparation, so generally we do the 7 branch practice, right? So that's kind of what he's saying, but in very few words, that make prostration with reverence and offer what you can to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. The 7 branch, here only 2 branches mentioned, so it is making prostration, making offering, chazavat, shakpa, making purification, or as some translate, confession. Jesu yirang, rejoicing is number 4th. Jesu yirang, chazavat, Jesu yirang kushing. Then number 5th is sort of requesting to turn the wheel of Dharma to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then the 6th is requesting to live long for the sake of sentient beings. And then the 7th is making dedication. So these 7 branches should be done first, he says, with utmost devotion to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. Buddhas, because they are the result of bodhicitta. Hence, they are the cause of bodhicitta. Bodhisattvas, because they are sort of practitioners of bodhicitta. Hence, they are also a cause of bodhicitta. They are the cause of Buddha. So by default, bodhisattvas also become a cause of bodhicitta. So it is like this, you take the vow from someone who has the vow, right? So the main sort of person or sort of the lineage of the vow goes back to someone like Shakyamuni Buddha, right? So first we make these type of prostrations and offerings and the other practices in front of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. Chokdukun na shukbai changju simban namji tims. Then after that we take the bodhicitta vow. We take the bodhicitta vow, which is really the discipline of all the bodhisattvas, not just the bodhisattvas bodhisattva followers of Shakyamuni Buddha, not at all, but all sort of bodhisattvas of the past had practiced the same discipline. All the bodhisattva of present, they are all practicing this same discipline, and all the bodhisattvas of future will practice the same discipline. So it is really the discipline of all the bodhisattvas, and that is indeed a source, is a treasury of merit, he says. It's a treasury of merit. With a noble mind. In the translation you might see lofty intention, with a noble mind. Here noble mind meaning with compassion to sentient beings, right? That is a very important ingredient of taking bodhicitta, no? When you take pratimoksha vow, when you take a monk or a nun's vow, then the intention is sort of renunciation. That is the sort of the main ingredient of that, right? So similarly here, the intention is compassion, kindness to sentient beings. You worry, for sentient beings, that seeing beings how they suffer with birth, old age, sickness and death, how they suffer under afflictions, so you generate compassion, and that compassion is the lofty intention now. Lofty intention meaning, or sambatamba, it's the highest of all the intention, because you want to save everybody. You want to liberate all. Now there is no better, higher intention than this. You want to remove all ignorance with their traces completely from the minds of all sentient beings. So it is, lofty intention. It's the highest of all intention, motivation. So with that type of mind, Lama domla nishinki nuda dende nawarchas. You take this bodhicitta vow from a teacher, from a preceptor who himself or herself has this vow. You cannot take it from somebody who doesn't have this vow. So someone who himself or herself has this vow, and who is also learned, not just someone who just have the vow is not enough. Someone who is learned in the sort of different rituals of the vow, who is learned in the sutras, who is learned in the Abhidharma, like that, who is learned in how to do study, contemplation and meditation of this bodhisattva path, who is learned in giving teachings to you, on what to do now, and when you have downfalls, who can purify that, who can tell you, all right, so now do this and do that, and then this should purify you, like that, and someone who has the capacity, meaning in the commentaries they said the teacher, if the teacher is too old and can barely speak, or cannot hear anything, cannot see anything, or too sick, or that's not the ideal condition for taking the vow, because you need to hear it, you need to understand it, and like that. So Nipada Dempa, someone who can give the vow, who knows how to give the vow, and so on. Now here Jetsun Trapa Jalsen, he raises some sort of, he makes some clarification. I am mainly reading the commentary of Jetsun Trapa Jalsen and Je Phamodrupa. Phamodrupa is very, very important early Kagyu master, direct student of Gampopa. It is said that he was also a student, a very important student of Sachen Kunga Nyingpo. I believe it is said that he served Sachen Kunga Nyingpo for 12 years, like that. So that's Je Phamodrupa, one commentary I'm reading, and then another commentary is Jetsun Trapa Jalsen, who is a Sakyapa master and who is a son of Sachen Kunga Nyingpo. So both sort of authors are around the same time, but I think Phamodrupa is much older. And of course Phamodrupa is a very important Kagyu master, and this is a very important Sakya master. I just have these two commentaries to read. I'm sure there are so many Indian and Tibetan commentaries, but I just went with the first two that I'm going to get, and I got these two. Now Jetsun Trapa Jalsen says there are many discussions and arguments about what is a proper base for bodhicitta vow, like proper foundation for bodhicitta vow. For example, refuge is the base of all the vows. When you don't have refuge, you don't have any vows, right? You cannot have Vajrayana vows when you haven't taken refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. You cannot have bodhicitta vow when you haven't taken refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Like that, he says there is a debate that one must have pratimoksha vow, like like a upasika or a novice monk or a nun or fully ordained monk, like that type of. He says one must have pratimoksha vow. It is said by some to have to generate bodhicitta vow and to keep the bodhicitta vow. Some says, you need the pratimoksha vow to generate the bodhicitta, but not necessarily to keep the bodhicitta, like that. So with a little bit difference, but he says many insist that you must have bodhicitta pratimoksha vow, and he says that really in some text I cannot really read now all that what he said, or it will become a very long session. This commentary of Jetsun Trapa Jalsen is actually translated and it's available to buy online. I think it's €3 or something. I think we should just buy it just to support the translator. I don't know who translated it. I was very happy to see that. Yeah, that's just so amazing. But anyway, if you can, because I'm not going through the commentary sort of really thoroughly. I cannot do that, so that's a lot of pages. But so if you can get your hands on the translation, please do so. So Jesus Tabaji, anyway, in short, he says this doesn't make sense that you must have a Pratimoksha vow, because there are many sort of, for example, it is said that humans from other worlds, like we have humans from other worlds or other continents, I should say, because Buddhist cosmology is like this, right? You have this huge mountain, and then here is earth, and then there on 3 other sides are 3 other human realms. These are all human realms, and this is in this world supposedly. Almost and they are called continents. Like I guess you have to translate it as continents, because the term ling refers to a huge land that is surrounded by ocean. So I guess it becomes continents, because smaller ones will be called islands, right? Now, Pratimoksha vow would only be possible to someone from earth, and also he says in many sutras there is mention of bodhisattva gods, bodhisattva sort of nagas, and bodhisattva asuras, even the sons of Mara, daughters of Mara become bodhisattvas. They take bodhisattva vow from, for example, Vimalakirti. If you read Vimalakirti Sutra, Mara sends his most beautiful daughters to seduce Vimalakirti, but Vimalakirti really sort of subdues them and gives them bodhicitta vow teaching, and sends them to go back to the realm of Mara and to spread teaching there, like that. So these are not human. So the point is, Pratimoksha vow, especially monks and nuns, and these vows, upasaka, can only be given to somebody who is a human. And he says, all these beings are not human. In other sutras, we have mentions of nagas, students of Avalokiteshvara, Buddha Shakyamuni, and these are all great bodhisattvas and so on, but they are not humans. So Jesus Tabaji says that clearly it goes against the teaching of Mahayana, understanding of Mahayana teaching, to say that you must have a Pratimoksha vow to have bodhicitta, because then you are going to cut off a lot of other sort of beings. And then to those who insist that, you must have Pratimoksha vow to generate bodhicitta vow and to keep the bodhicitta vow, then he argues, what about someone who dies? Because as soon as you die, the Pratimoksha vow will end. But bodhicitta vow should not end, because it is until Buddhahood. But then he says, how can the person still have bodhicitta vow, because there's no longer Pratimoksha vow? How about, because also in the sutras it is taught that sometimes in order to benefit sentient beings, a bodhisattva should offer Pratimoksha vow back. If a monk or a nun bodhisattva sees benefit in let's say stealing, you must steal to protect many, you must have sexual intercourse to benefit others, like or save somebody's lives or whatever it is. So the bodhisattva sees no other way, but this must be done. Buddha says it is good. If the bodhisattva then do not do it, is a big problem, So bodhisattva must give the monk's vow, nun's vow back. So Jitra says, then what about this now? Look, it is advice of the Buddha for that Bodhisattva must do this. So after giving the monk's vow, are you saying the person is no longer a Bodhisattva? This doesn't make sense. Anyway, so these are the arguments, and he doesn't agree that one must have a Pratimoksha vow to have bodhicitta, to generate bodhicitta or to keep bodhicitta. So masters like Korampa, omniscient Korampa, he says, in some text it is said that only to those who have Pratimoksha vow can have bodhicitta, but that is not to be taken literally, because that is actually meant for humans, for sort of humans of this earth, to show them what is necessary to have first, to show them what is the best solution is that you first take refuge vow, like go step by step. You first take refuge vow, then you take upasaka vow, then you maybe get ordained, and there are also steps in the upasaka vow. You take one vow, 2, 3, or all 5 of upasaka vows like that, or you become a novice nun, and then you become a fully ordained nun. So now a fully ordained nun and a fully ordained monk is the best candidate to take bodhicitta vow. Of course, just a farmer or just anybody can take bodhicitta vow. You will have to take refuge vow and then you take bodhicitta vow. But among these two, a fully ordained monk and just an ordinary sort of householder, the fully ordained monk is far better candidate of taking bodhicitta vow. So that's what he's saying, that this is to show sort of this is to highlight the best candidate of taking bodhicitta vow, but it doesn't mean that if you do not have Pratimoksha vow you cannot take bodhicitta. Some teachers say, I'm talking a lot now. Some teachers say, yes, you must have Pratimoksha vow to have bodhicitta, and that Pratimoksha vow is refuge. You take refuge. As soon as you take refuge, you automatically become an upasaka, of Shakyamuni. So that is enough, and that really seems to be like that, because bodhicitta vow to Shantideva, when he's giving bodhicitta vow in the 3rd chapter, before the 3rd chapter, from the 2nd chapter and half of the 3rd chapter is the preparation of taking bodhicitta vow, and he makes us do the 7th branch. He teaches about the 7th branch, and then he gives refuge. There's not even a word of taking pratimoksha or any other thing, just a refuge. And then you take the bodhicitta vow directly, just refuge, right? So it does make sense that refuge is the pratimoksha vow, and after taking refuge you can take bodhicitta. In the for example, in the initiations, in Vajrayana initiations, or in Vajrayana language, you hear this term a lot. Domba Sumden, someone who has all 3 vows, possessor of all 3 vows. So what does it mean is the Pratimoksha vow, Bodhicitta vow, and Vajrayana vow. So then, what is the Pratimoksha vow now? Doesn't mean you have to be a monk or a nun. Pratimoksha vow is then you have refuge vow. That is, it can refer to that, just that. And having refuge vow, you become an upasika automatically. And then Bodhicitta and Vajrayana. Then (554) (557). Jizun Trungpa Gyaltsen, he explains. So he says, so what is bodhicitta? He says, he quotes Maitreya, where Maitreya says, Simchepa ni shinden chir yangdak dzogpe changjub de. Meaning, bodhicitta is a decision. Simchepa ni shinden chir yangdak dzogpe changjub de. Or bodhicitta is the wish to achieve, to attain the perfect Buddhahood for the benefit of others. So this is what Maitreya said. Now, so that is the bodhicitta. Then in the text he says, Lama domla neshin ke nida dinle langwar chas. From a lama maintaining and learned in the vow, who is capable of bestowing it. So we should take this bodhicitta from such a teacher, right? So Jizun Trungpa Gyaltsen, then he describes the type of lama that is, so the ideal lama that one should have. And the description is very, very, very long. But I thought it's good to know, that not just anybody. Sometimes it feels like even people like myself, I haven't really practiced anything. I just took the bodhicitta vow from my teacher, and after some years I think, oh, now I can give it to others, like that, but actually it shouldn't be like that. That's not good. Well, how it should be is this. He says, someone who remains in the bodhicitta vow and who purifies himself or herself as soon as there is a transgression. Someone who is learned in all the rituals and aspects of bodhicitta and its transgressions. Someone who is learned in the sutra of bodhicitta. Someone who is learned in Bodhisattva Sutras, meaning Mahayana Sutras, and someone who is learned in Mamo is Abhidharma, and someone who has the strength meaning someone who can give bodhicitta vow, someone who has confidence that I can do it, and Shaya midebe on the chiti teba mebe, labala mimeba the mijuk the mideba maimba the shabachin on the chinikamsachinda. And someone who doesn't do things that creates other to have wrong views, someone who doesn't do things that turns others away from dharma, someone who is not extremely attached to things, someone who is not completely overpowered by desire, someone who does not know contentment, that's not a good teacher. Someone who is not completely overpowered by transgressions, and someone who actually looks down on many of the practices, saying, oh yeah, that's not important, like that. Someone who is not lax, sort of too relaxed, that's not good, meaning careless. Someone who doesn't have tolerance is not a good teacher. Someone who remembers enmity, who keeps the pain and to take revenge in future, that's not a good teacher, he says. Someone who is not tolerant, someone who cannot tolerate the mistakes of the students and mistakes of others, someone who is so these are not good teachers shouldn't have these. And someone who is not lazy, someone who is not extremely attached to sleep and lying around like that, someone who is not attached to gossiping, and who is not someone who's not completely distracted, so distracted that you cannot even meditate one pointedly during the time span of how long a person takes to milk a cow, he says. They're very difficult, this is, I don't have these things, people like me. So yes, such a teacher, you should take. Someone who knows the text, someone who knows the scriptures, someone who is not afraid of the great practices of bodhisattvas, someone who doesn't criticize different Mahayana practices, lineages, and texts, someone who can actually say what he or she is thinking and knows, clearly in proper sort of grammar, so to speak, way. So from such a person, whether this person is a monk, ordained or householder, or lay practitioner, better, ordained or lay practitioner, one should take bodhisattva vow from such a person. So that is the type of the teacher that we are talking about. And then, well, I'm really jumping on a lot of text, because here Jigten Trungpa Gyaltsen then gives, not only he explains the ritual of taking bodhicitta vow in this tradition, the Chittamatra tradition, but he actually explains, he actually teaches the ritual itself. He says, then do 3 prostration, get on your knees, and then recite these 3 times, like that, So it is really, really precious text, actually. And here, he talks about downfalls, which I would just read a little bit. So what will make the bodhicitta vow be lost? What would degenerate the vow? Now, in this tradition, you take the aspiration bodhicitta and application bodhicitta one by one, not together. So you can also lose them one by one, not together, which means you can lose application bodhicitta, but you can still have aspiration bodhicitta, like that, So he says, what makes you lose aspiration bodhicitta? Page number 554 in Tibetan. Where is it now? So he says, for advices on how to keep the aspiration bodhicitta, there is one root downfall, and sort of there are 4 advices on how to keep it, how to make sure it doesn't weaken. So the root downfall, this one is now like the Madhyamika, same. When you let go of a sentient beings, when someone does harm to you, and when someone does harm to someone else, even when someone harms a Buddha, even when someone destroys all dharma from the face of this earth, or harms all sentient beings, you are not allowed. You're not allowed. It's transgression. You're not allowed to think, to hell with that person, I don't care. The moment you do that, you lose the bodhicitta. Wow. And then Jesus says, in such time, it's better to think, for now, I'm going to keep myself away from this person, but hopefully in future I can help this person, but not now. I cannot help this person. And then you sort of, move away, or take whatever necessary action that is needed. In this way, the root downfall of aspiration bodhicitta will not happen. Then, now the 4 practices which is needed to keep this aspiration bodhicitta, make sure it doesn't go down, does not weaken. First, he says, take refuge. Jundu Jangwa, meaning you should practice daily. Practice daily with just simple words like, for the sake of all sentient beings, I take, I must attain complete enlightenment, and like that. Just simple words, or reciting reciting Sangye Chotsogma, which is basically first 2 lines is taking refuge to the Buddha, to the Dharma, to the Supreme Sangha, that until enlightenment I take refuge to you, and whatever merit that I accumulate through generosity and so on, I dedicate all of this so that I become Buddha for the sake of sentient beings, for the benefit of sentient beings. So like this, he says you recite these words that rekindles your bodhicitta and reminds you. Second, he says, remember the benefit of bodhicitta. So for example, read the first chapter of Bodhisattva Charitamrita, where the merit that you accumulate, a negative karma that is being purified, and just read, remember, right? Most of you have read, so then then he says, anyway, sorry. Then he quotes he quotes Ratnakutta Sutra. In the Ratnakutta Sutra, Buddha says, Maitreya, a bodhisattva should he says Buddha says, Kasyapa, when a bodhisattva have these 4 dharmas, these 4 practices, then the bodhisattva will not forget bodhicitta, in this life or the next, and they are getting mixed up now. In the Ratnakutta Sutra, Buddha says, Kasyapa, when a bodhisattva has these 4 dharma, these four dharma or these four types of practice, then the bodhisattva will forget bodhicitta, and they are deceiving one's preceptor, one's teachers, and Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and so on. Then shen joba me bala joba nyavar dubatans. When a bodhisattva makes someone else regret something that this person actually should not regret. You understand? Let's, somebody made a lot of offering, let's just say, and bodhisattva goes there and says, that's stupid, you should have done this, you should have done that, and the person with the sort of pure motivation already have done that, and you due to jealousy or whatever reason, you manipulate such a person and make them regret something that they shouldn't regret actually. It's the second mistaken practice. Tekba chimbole yanda brushu be semje namla ngapo jeba mahimba de nyamba mahimba de tsitu jeba mahimba jimba tangs. Criticizing, what is it? Gossiping, spreading rumors and lies, and even if it's not lie, even if it's true, criticizing out of just wanting to criticize, out of afflictions, someone else who has taken bodhicitta vow, who is on the Mahayana path, that is not good. Juda ye shenla nyavar chepe sambos, with the wishing to fool others, wishing to deceive others, just other practitioners and other sentient beings. That's also nyavar chepe, and wanting to use others. When you have these type of practices, these type of mistaken practices, or a bodhisattva will forget bodhicitta very soon. And now, then again, from the same text, Buddha says, Kasyapa, when a bodhisattva has these four practices or four dharmas, then this bodhisattva will generate bodhicitta in all lives as soon as one is born, he said, and will not remember bodhicitta until he or she becomes completely awakened. What are those four? Soge chiram tana shegeji chirya sheshindu dunji tik mimawa tangs. Even even at the sort of point of one's own life, bodhisattva do not lie to deceive others. Obviously, also not as a joke too, bodhisattva never lies to deceive others, Juda yo maybe semjengi tunan habe sambe nebatans. Bodhisattva remains in front of sentient beings with sort of sincere mind, without any hope of getting something from them, like using them, nothing like fooling. There is no pretense, just sincerely as bodhisattva is. That to see all others, but other bodhisattvas as one's teacher, and to make praise of all the other bodhisattvas. Semchen kangda yonso member cheba thada nisewe tekba mide barlana meba yanda bozobe chanjo yanda barzendo chukpa te wesung chipo thada kos. And whenever this bodhisattva then matures sentient being meaning give teaching and transform the mind of these sort of listeners, disciples, bodhisattva when the person Bodhisattva will teach the highest vehicle. Bodhisattva will teach the complete path of liberation. Basically put this person on the path to Buddhahood. So when Bodhisattva have these four sort of unmistaken dharma, these four dharma in the sutra, whether it is the four negative practice, the term is the same, che, and then whether it is the four sort of good practices, the term is the same, che. So here I just translate it as a mistaken dharma or unmistaken dharma, but that's just from me. All right, so this is long enough for the first session. Please make dedication. Sonam de tamji zibani tomine bedana pamje de chekana je balon trubai sibezolan roan roar show. Dowe dungal benchik budewa tamji juani tembanye da kurdi danche de yurin ne jurjilu jelgo nyargo wachen tongen ne banam siring ne me buzum so ta de dewa dembar show. Changju simjurun boje maje banam jebat. Jebanyamba me baya khone khondo pelwar show.